All right, guys, welcome back into another NBA DFS video. We are going to be getting into this Wednesday night slate, a big 9-game slate. Chuck and I will answer all your questions as they come in, so make sure to ask those if you have them. Chuck, what are your first thoughts on tonight's slate?
Tonight's slate is a disaster. It's probably one of the worst NBA slates I've ever seen. I just think there's so many options. There's too many options. Like the Lakers guys are going to be the most popular, and they're the best plays on the slate. But I think that there's a lot of ways to get different in our lineups today.
Should we just start with the Lakers then?
Yeah,
Gonna
we should
cover
probably
that?
just start with the Lakers. Yeah, I thought it was going to be a Pistons slate again, but luckily they got some of their guys back. But then
Yep.
Anthony Davis got ruled out this morning. LeBron's already out. D'Angelo Russell's out. So, the top guys on the slate: Jared Vanderbilt, Malik Beasley, Dennis Schroeder, and Rui Hachimura. The model doesn't like Rui Hachimura as much as the rest of the field does, so I think that might be the first spot that we try to get a little bit different, maybe. But I'm not sure if the minutes have updated yet. 27 seems a couple too low for Rui Hachimura.
Yeah, I don't know. So they've been weird with their rotation with him specifically, is what I've kind of noticed. Like, obviously, if you're playing him, you're hoping that the minutes are there. I mean, I would say that's probably right. But even at those minutes, he should still be able to add value.
That's the thing at 3,700. Like he doesn't have to do much. He's been kind of a disappointment. I know we weren't expecting a star player when the Lakers got Rui, but the shot volume isn't there. He's not really getting the peripheral stats as much. So let's see how the ownership looks later. But my first thought is Rui is the first spot I kind of probably want to try to get away from. Just I had that kind of feeling, and then the model confirmed it.
Yeah. Who would you, just between the centers, would you go Mo Bamba or would you go Gabriel?
I would go Mo Bamba, assuming that he's starting.
Yeah.
It's like we have to play someone at center tonight. Jared Vanderbilt could slide down to center for some minutes, though, so that's kind of the tough thing with the Lakers centers. If we knew Mo Bamba and Wenyen Gabriel were going to split 48 minutes, then they'd both be pretty good plays.
Yeah.
But as it is now, we probably have to make a decision.
Yeah, I'm looking at kind of a very small sample size with LeBron, AD, and Westbrook off the court. It was Gabriel getting the second most minutes, but wasn't very productive. But if he does get minutes, obviously, that's all that matters. So very interesting. Like I don't know. It doesn't feel very clear to me. Like yes, obviously Vanderbilt, Beasley, like the guards are kind of obvious, but in terms of the bigs, it seems a little bit more risky than they should at their current ownerships.
Right. One thing too with Austin Reeves, the model loved him yesterday compared to some of the other values, and he was super low owned. Today he's pulling some ownership, but I still think he's worth some shots. He only took 8 actual shot attempts yesterday, so we don't love that. But just a guy who can take away from the other chalk pieces on the Lakers at lower ownership is pretty good.
Yeah. So the Detroit game or slate, whatever, the 4-game slate, we said kind of about 4 players we could pull from Detroit. What are your kind of thoughts for is there a max amount of Lakers we should have in our builds? Obviously 9-game slate.
Yeah. Like just looking through my lineups, I have a ton of lineups with, they all have 2, 3, or 4 Lakers.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm going to set a restriction on the team. I'm probably going to do something with the groups. I'm not sure yet, but it would be something like maybe max 2 of Schroeder, Beasley, Reeves, max 2 of Bamba, Wenyen Gabriel, something with the forward. So I'm not going to do like max 4 on the Lakers or max 3 on the Lakers, but I'm going to try to do a couple restrictions with the groups, but not try to restrict myself too much to where I'm not able to build the winning lineup. I did that the other day with Detroit. I was not able to produce the winning lineup given my rules, so got to be a little careful with it.
Yeah. Was that just you set a cap on Detroit and like 5 of them went off?
I set max 2 of the guards, and you could have done without Burks, but Burks was the guy I was getting the most, and so I was getting a lot of Burks and Hayes and Burks and Diallo combos, but I had 0 combos with Burks, Diallo, and Hayes, and so it was a tough time.
Yeah. And then just speaking of Detroit, let's pull them up just kind of injury wise. So it looks like they're going to get Bogdanovich back tonight. And as price tag, he seems kind of cheap, especially for his ownership. Now, I know he hasn't been as good lately. Is he someone ownership-wise you might be thinking about, or is it just he's been bad for a while, not playing him?
So players that have been bad for a while coming in at low ownership, like Bogdanovich, that can hit 6, 7 threes in a game, I'm always okay taking tournament shots on, especially when the rest of their team is pretty popular. I mean, they're not as popular as they were last time, not nearly, but
Mhm.
still some leverage to be had there if the Detroit guys' ownership starts creeping up.
Yeah. And then just looking at Wiseman, is he going to be a good pivot there? 15%, 8% on FanDuel. Coming in as one of the better values with Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren out. Is he a lock and load? Is he someone that you're looking at, or are you looking at Marvin Bagley instead?
So I think the big thing with Wiseman and Bagley is the positional eligibility. Wiseman has power forward eligibility on DraftKings. Bagley does not. Um, as far as like each individual player, I don't think it should be Bagley with no ownership and Wiseman pulling
Yeah.
ownership. It should be a little bit closer, but I get it because of the power forward eligibility. But they're both just, to me, they're just tournament shots today.
Okay. Yeah, I probably would agree there. If I end up on them, close out my build, I'm fine with it.
Right. The price came up a little bit on Wiseman, and he was
Yeah.
a big spot last time, so it's a little bit tougher.
And then just looking at it, I mean, Miami's a little bit banged up, but nothing too crazy. The Nats, Ben Simmons probably shut down for the year, it seems like. Other than that, I mean, it's nothing like that we haven't seen too much of. I mean, the Pelicans are still pretty banged up. Portland's still pretty banged up, but nothing like too surprising. And then really the only other, I guess, somewhat big news, Chris Middleton out, which, okay. And then Kendrick Williams for the Thunder is out. Are any of those worth mentioning? Are you seeing any players that you want to be on given the other injury news that we have?
Yeah, there was something in there. Yeah. Who was the team you mentioned 2 teams ago? Sorry.
So we got the Thunder with Kendrick Williams out, who had actually been getting a decent amount of minutes. We got Chris Middleton out from Milwaukee, and then there was the Pelicans and Portland.
Pelicans. Right.
I want to
Sorry.
end with Charlotte. So
Okay, I'll hold off on Charlotte. With the Pelicans, Joval is questionable, and I thought Hernan Gomez was going to get the minutes off the bench last time. It was Jackson Hayes. So if Joval's out, let's look out for that starting lineup because whichever center starts is probably going to be one of the best values on the slate.
yeah. And then what about Herbert Jones if J Val's out? I feel like he has some spike games when he's out.
So with Herbert Jones, like most days we do have difficulty filling these forward positions, and he does that for us. His price is pretty good today, right? It's under 5K, 4,200.
Yep.
It's not bad price if Joval's out. He's going to come in with no ownership. I don't think I would play him just because Joval's out, but if you want to play him because he's cheap and low owned, I think that's fine.
Okay. And then, so I kind of teased Charlotte. They're kind of the big kind of spot today with LaMelo Ball obviously out. And it's looking like we're going to get PJ Washington back potentially. Currently, we don't have him projected any minutes. He has a game time decision. If he plays, to me, he seems like a lock. If he sits, Mark Williams, Nick Richards, kind of what are your thoughts on this team?
Well, my first thought was Dennis Smith, right?
Yeah.
But he's already priced up a little bit on DraftKings at 5,100. 6,100 on FanDuel. He's pulling more ownership than he is on DraftKings at a cheaper price. I kind of get it because the value's at guard on DraftKings. But Dennis Smith played a lot. Like he's going to play probably 30. The 31 minutes that we have for him is probably pretty accurate. He was on the court most of the time when LaMelo got hurt in the previous game. So Dennis Smith is a pretty good spot. Terry Rozier is too cheap, and I think Gordon Hayward, given his usage recently, has been great, but I think his ownership is a little too high for a 9-gamer.
Yep, and then they obviously have I know you typically don't like to worry about this, but there's a huge potential to get blown out tonight too, and they just go to their backups.
Yeah. And so with like Mark Williams, I'm always happy to get to Mark Williams. He's not really going to play more than 32 minutes regardless of anything. We have him for 29. He looks fine for a 5X. And then Nick Richards, you mentioned also, 0%. I don't like him at 4K, but he is an option. And then JT Thor is the top of the DK value, but I'm not sure about JT Thor today.
It is very interesting there because if it is a blowout and he does get around, let's say 28 minutes, I know the production hasn't been there at all lately, but it is interesting at min price.
Interesting.
I feel like there should be some value, but there's just not. They're just suck, pretty much, for lack of a better term.
Oubre, Oubre is 1%. He could go off for 7 threes or something, but that's a deep tournament shot.
Honestly, that was kind of my biggest takeaway when I was looking at this is like GPPs wise are probably trying to get to Kelly Oubre a little bit, just maybe over the weight on the field, just because he could go for 40 at 6.5, and we'd obviously take that.
Yeah, and at 1% on DraftKings, you can have 3% of Kelly Oubre in your 150 set. Or if you're playing 20, you can
Yeah.
play Kelly Oubre once, and you're already massively over the field.
Yeah, I like that approach a decent amount. And then just in that game as well, we got KD back. Any thoughts on really the Suns in general? Because this is kind of, to me, the most difficult part about this tail end of the season is figuring out rotations, figuring out kind of chemistry stuff. Any thoughts on the Suns in general?
I think the only player that's going to make my player pool from the Suns today is DeAndre Ayton.
Mhm.
8,100 on DraftKings, even with KD in, I think is still a reasonable price. I mean, Chris Paul 7,900. That's not too bad. Devin Booker 8,900. Their FanDuel prices are all higher, but
Yep.
I kind of want to see a rotation. I'm not playing Kevin Durant. I don't see how he plays 36 minutes, and if we get less than 30 minutes from KD, he's just not a good play.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm mostly avoiding the Suns. I'll probably get a couple shares of Ayton on DraftKings.
I did notice, like prize picks wise, and I thought this was a good one. I think it was like 3.5 assists for Durant was like heavily favored for the over. And like if you kind of think about it, being in a new team, I could see him like defaulting to trying to score less, I guess, getting players more involved. So I didn't mind that just in general.
I like that. Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and just move on into the top guards on the slate. I'll sort it by DraftKings guards to start with, and we'll talk about who are the top plays, sorting by the OF index. And so it looks like Damian Lillard obviously had a cold night a little bit yesterday, slightly. And then Morant, Harden, Drew popping up their holiday, Devin Booker, Jalen Brunson, CJ McCollum. Any one of those players kind of popping up for you that you like, maybe trying to get overweight on the field where you are seeing Lillard and Morant be pretty chalky.
Yeah, I'm not that interested in John Morant today. I know he had that huge game yesterday. I was actually kind of hoping he sat today since they're playing Houston. But yeah, it's Damian Lillard, I think. I mean, just looking at the model, he kind of broke it today, right? Even if we take away those guard filters, he is by far the highest player on the model today. Like, I don't think I've seen anyone that far above Giannis before, not named Jokic or Luka.
Yeah.
And
I
so
think
Damian,
LeBron for a stretch.
maybe,
But
yeah, but yeah, basically those kind of studs, right? And so like Dame is a stud, but he hasn't been a Luka level stud, you know.
yeah.
But
Yep.
but now at absolute max price, he is the by far the best play on the model. I wish his ownership was less, and he's in that last island game tonight, and so we're all going to be sweating Dame whether we're playing him or not. We either need him to put up 100 or need him to score 25.
That is so true. Yeah.
I think he's a good play. I think I'm going to be happy to play Dame tonight.
Yeah. I mean, have you looked at his per 36 numbers with all those players off the court? It is like 63 fantasy points per 36, and he's projected to get more than that. It is obviously that's not sustainable, but that is just crazy.
Yeah, that's insane. And you mentioned he had a bad game yesterday. He still had 25.7 assists, 3 rebounds, and 3 steals. Shot 9 of 21. That's not terrible. He only took 7 threes. That's the least threes he's taken in.
And he still put up 45. I mean, that's not terrible. Obviously, you're not going to win a GPP with that, but for an off night to score 45, it's not terrible.
It's pretty insane. And keep in mind, it's a huge slate, and so it's likely another player on the slate, like a cheap guy on the slate's probably going to go for 50 tonight.
Yes.
And it's going to be hard to get to because we lower own. Dame's going to pull ownership, but we really need 60 plus out of Dame tonight if we're paying this price for him. Like, we have the value to get to him. It's not hard. That's the other thing I want to mention. If you're playing Dame and you're playing all the chalk value, just make sure your lineup isn't too similar to everyone else's. Even though it's a huge slate, there's been some chops at the top of tournaments the past few slates. And so that's one thing. If you're playing Dame and you're playing the chalk value, your lineup's going to be very similar. So just find a couple spots to get a little different.
Yeah. I agree with that for sure. So I see Isaiah Joe is actually, and so like the two best kind of values, if we're just sorting by the OF index that stand out to me, are Isaiah Joe and Malik Beasley. At 4.5 pretty much each. I think they're around there. They're not too chalky. I mean, Beasley's like 30% and 37% on FanDuel. Joe 10% and 6%. Would you be fine plugging those two in with someone like Lillard, or be looking to go cheaper?
I'm going to be playing a bunch of Malik Beasley today. He's just a little bit too cheap. He's, scoring dependent, obviously, but he's also one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA, so hopefully he can just hit a few threes in the first quarter and get hot. It doesn't take much for him to get there. But him and Joe are very similar plays. I mean, they're the same price, and Joe's pulling 1/3 the ownership.
Yeah. Honestly, when you said he's the best three-point shooter in the league, I was like, I thought you were talking about Isaiah Joe, because isn't his three-point percentage insane?
Is he up there if he qualifies for the list? I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I don't think he qualifies. That's the thing.
Okay.
But for his shots, I think he's like the number one player for 3-point percentage with no min on it or something like that. But
I believe it. I remember during the All-Star weekend when he wasn't in the 3-point contest, people were like, "Where's Isaiah Joe?" And I was like, "Why?" But
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. So I don't mind. I'm going to put those two in there for now into kind of the sample build, kind of just the general field build for now. And then just sorting by FanDuel value just to see. It's Beasley, it's Joe, it's Lillard, which is crazy. Dennis. Yeah, it is. It really is. And Grayson Allen actually popping up there with Middleton out, and Pat Connaughton's popping up there as well with Middleton out. And they're not terrible, I would say. Just know when you're going out of your way to play.
This reminds me of finding Austin Reeves in the model yesterday. He was pretty close to the top of value, but his ownership was very low compared to the guys around him. I'm talking about Grayson Allen right now. Grayson Allen and Pat Connaughton too. Their price is a little higher than I'd like to pay.
Yeah.
But at 0% and 1% ownership, I think we can play a couple percent in our 150.
It doesn't take much for them to get hot. It just doesn't,
Right.
Like 4 3-pointers for one of them, and they're kind of somewhat breaking the slate.
Yeah, I mean, look at Grayson Allen's 4,700 on DraftKings. Isaiah Joe and Malik Beasley are both 4,500. Like, Joe and Beasley are going to outscore Grayson Allen the vast majority of the time. But the one time Grayson Allen outscores those guys, he's going to be one of the best plays on the slate in terms of helping you win a tournament.
Yeah, I don't mind that. And then let's see here. I think we got a couple of questions coming in, so let's just see. So someone loves Brandon Ingram and Zach LaVine. Any thoughts on them?
Brandon Ingram, I'm all about right now. Zach LaVine, I'm not as sure about. I'm not as sure about Zach LaVine right now. I'm pretty sure DeMar was pulling a little bit of ownership, so I wouldn't mind pivoting to Zach LaVine tonight. But on his own, I don't think he's nothing about him stands out today, I should say.
Yeah. And then any top plays that are under-owned that you would love to get to. So we're kind of going through that right now. So we'll develop that thought process throughout the video. Simmons is questionable now. So would that change Damian Lillard as a player, or Simons if he plays?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it would. Dame's price would be a little bit too high. Dame could obviously still score 50. It doesn't matter who's on the court with him. 50 real points. But if we're paying max price for Dame with Anthony Simons in, if his ownership comes down, if we think Dame's ownership is going to be way less with Anthony Simons in, then I like it. But if his ownership is going to stay high at this expensive price and Simons is in, then it's really tough to get to. But like I said, it's Dame. He could still do it. It's just not as likely.
Yeah, that is tough because obviously it's the late night game, so that could be honestly the make or break point of this whole slate.
Yeah, if we don't have that news before the previous game starts, then you probably have to make a decision, or you have to know that you have a viable swap with just that last game if you're playing Dame.
And that's a situation where I'm much more of a single entry type of guy. I might just run out 2 lineups instead, one with Dame, one without Dame, just because obviously you're gaining an edge with one of the lineups massively. So
I like that. Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and switch up into the forwards here. Let me see if we have any other questions. Harden is under 5%. Yeah, I don't really like Harden. And then what about Jimmy Butler? Any thoughts on those two?
Harden, I feel like Harden's a random guy, and it's a tough matchup today against Miami, so I don't think he's a guy that we want to target, but he is showing up fairly high in the model. He's number 7, and he's coming in at that low ownership, so I think it's not a bad play. They just played each other, and didn't Jimmy just put up 100 points on him?
I forget, actually.
So one thing a couple games ago when Jimmy went off, so Jimmy's still showing up with a pretty good score in the model. He's number 9, and he's coming in at 1%. This is the same matchup we just saw him go off on. And so usually I wouldn't buy too much into that, but since Jimmy's 1% and Philadelphia means something to him, I like taking some shots on Jimmy.
Was that the game in which he had that awesome kind of game-winning lineup essentially, or layup essentially?
Was that the near triple-double?
Yeah, that's what it's showing here too. Yeah.
The previous game against Philly. Yeah.
Huh. That does not seem like it was
3
2 days ago.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, NBA DFS takes years off your life, man.
It does. That's exactly it. Oh man. So looking at the best forwards on the OF index, Giannis, and then kind of a big gap to Tatum, and then we got Randall, Ingram, Butler, like we mentioned, Jaren Jackson Jr., Jared Vanderbilt, Brown, DeMar, KD, Mikal, and then probably the best value, once again, would be Beasley. You can play him at forward on FanDuel, which I think is going to be huge, and that's probably why he's going to be more chalk on FanDuel. Then we got Dort, and that's kind of it. It seems like for like really strong plays.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I kind of feel like we got to pay up at forward a little bit since we have all the value at guard. I know we have Rui, Jared Vanderbilt, and Malik Beasley are forward eligible, but really like some of these power forwards at this low ownership. Tatum at this price at under 10% is great, even though it's the toughest matchup against Cleveland. Mentioned Jimmy Butler. You mentioned Jaren Jackson. Really like Jaren Jackson because he can get there in less than 30 minutes. So even if it's a blowout, it doesn't affect him too much.
Yeah, strong matchup too against Houston.
Yeah, and then I like Julius a lot actually too. I like this New York Brooklyn game from both sides. Julius Brunson and then a few guys on the Nets. Some other forwards, Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, I think are both really good tournament plays, assuming they stay under 10% ownership.
Yeah, that Brooklyn game against Milwaukee last night was definitely interesting. Like they were dominating, and all the players got their like fantasy points in the first half, and then they kind of all fizzled out. They definitely need a little bit more consistency, but
yeah, I thought Nick Claxton was going to do it last night. This dude hit value by halftime and then just stopped.
Right? Like what was honestly like what I didn't catch the second half, so I didn't see what happened. But that like literally had 3 blocks and 3 steals in the first half, and then nothing.
Yeah, I even said to my buddy, as long as Claxton has another 6-7 blocks in the second half, we're good. And I think he had like 8 fantasy points total, or maybe 6 fantasy points in the second half.
Yeah,
he's a good play today too.
He is. So like honestly, I feel like the Nets for really until the end of the season, 2 of the 4 that we'd be going in on. So Dinwiddie, Mikal, Johnson, and Claxton are all going to be good. They're all going to be worthwhile, I think, looking into. It's just trying to figure out which 2 to me.
Yeah. I think we just want to play them, mix them up, and it seems like they're going to go overlooked pretty frequently until they start doing this for like 2 weeks straight. Their ownerships are all very reasonable today. I love Spencer Dinwiddie too.
Yeah, yep. I mean, very cheap price. I mean, this guy could easily go for 40 and it just wouldn't be shocking at all. Gets a pretty good matchup against New York, which he just put up 40 against.
Yeah.
What's his ownership?
Spencer Dinwiddie's coming in at 5% right now.
I'm gonna put him in. I think that's just a good spot.
I love it. Yeah, I think this is one.
Oh, it's cutting out here. Can you hear me still, Chuck, or no? Let's see. I don't know if this is my internet or Chuck's internet here. Let me see. Can you guys still hear me all right on my end? I'm curious. Chuck just cut out. I don't know if it's me or Chuck. Let's see. I think it's Chuck. So while he comes back in, hopefully it's just Chuck and not my internet. But we got a question about JT Thor. JT Thor, we could play. We just don't love it. Okay. JT Thor is a very interesting play at his price point. Just given the fact that that game is most likely going to be a blowout. And he could get minutes. He's projected to get minutes. It's just a risky value play. And the question is, do we have to take that risk tonight? You could, and like 2% of bills, just don't go crazy with it. Just not the most eye appealing option. I know he's popping up value wise, but it is a tough click. So like looking at it and pulling him up here, 1%, 2%. And so let's see here. You know, game is projected to be a blowout, 26 minutes. Like if he does get 26 minutes, I mean, that's not a terrible play. It's just tough to really feel good about getting on him. Okay, so Chuck just went out. Okay, good. There's a little bit of a delay in the comments, just as an FYI. Yeah, so the Nets and Knicks game, I think we might have to stack a little bit of. I think Chuck laid it out extremely well there, that's a game that we could be and probably should be stacking a little bit. Just because it's appealing. And so Chuck is back, I believe. Let me pull him up here on the screen. 1 second. Give me 3 more seconds. I can hear you. Give me one sec. Did you have to
Yeah,
switch
cut
to
out.
your phone?
Yeah, my internet went out in my house. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, geez. That's my biggest fear is having the internet go out during a live stream.
I'm surprised it hasn't happened before.
Right?
So, yeah.
You are a little bit close to the camera, just as an FYI, but not a big deal. There we go.
Cool.
They missed you. The chat missed you there.
I miss them too.
So yeah, I just kind of touched on the Knicks game a little bit more. Talked about some of the forward value. Nothing too much there. I did have a question about like KJ Martin, just kind of your thoughts on him because he's coming in at low ownership. If Kevin Porter Jr. is out again, or maybe potentially Jalen Green sits, and that's the only reason why I would play him is if one of those two sit. Would you like him as a play? Just because obviously back to back, Kevin Porter I think sat out last night, so he could play tonight. So maybe Jalen Green sits out tonight.
I've been a pretty big fan of KJ Martin recently. As long as he stays under 6K, I'm very happy to play him. I'd much rather get to him than Jabari Smith every night. And then Tari Eason is a weird play on Houston. I talked about yesterday that if he gets that blowout run, Tari Eason in blowout run is going to win a tournament, and he did. And so they play Memphis. Memphis has been involved in the most blowouts over the last 2 seasons. Again, we don't project blowouts, but Tari Eason at 4K, like he's risky because if it doesn't blow out, he's probably not going to get the minutes to get there.
Yeah.
But since he's coming in with low ownership, I'm okay taking that risk. There's still a chance he could get there without the blowout run. And then if he gets a blowout run, he's just, he's gold.
There's so many players in the NBA where I just want them to get more minutes, and I think he'd be like number one on my list for players I want to see get consistent minutes.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I know that they have a lot of talented players, but this guy is really good.
He's been a strong point per minute player. It's pretty crazy. So yeah, I like that. I don't mind that. GPP wise makes some sense there. And so let me just see if we have any FanDuel value that's worth calling out. Not really. Tybal.
Yeah, Tybal was popping for me on FanDuel. I said I didn't want to play him last game, and this dude hit 3 threes and had 3 steals in like the first 6 minutes of the game.
Finally went off. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. Like the steals and blocks being worth 3 on FanDuel are great for him, but I don't know. It's really hard for me to get to Matisse Thybulle. Like if his price was min price, it's better, but he's not. So
yeah, I agree there. What about Jalen Williams, the one with the L? I guess they both have L's. Len.
The guard. Yeah.
Yeah. Just what are your kind of thoughts on him? Just we're talking about players being out and whatnot. He is shooting guard eligible on FanDuel, small forward, power forward on DraftKings. I didn't notice that. That's actually crazy. So 6.2 seems like a good play to me just in that game. Any thoughts on him? I mean, obviously a little bit priced up probably.
So he's one of my favorite young players in the league, especially that. So with Josh Giddey, this dude played like 24 minutes yesterday. Even Lou Dort got benched. I don't think we've seen Jalen Williams really get benched.
No,
not in this situation anyway. When Shea's out and their team is short, his price is too cheap on both sites. The 28% on FanDuel versus 10% on DraftKings at the same price. I think that there's an edge to be had by playing Jalen Williams on DraftKings. On FanDuel too, he's a great play. But
just the different position eligibilities could be key.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure guard is stronger than forward today, but I mean, if Jalen Williams put up 50 yesterday, so if we can get 40 plus from our small forward spot at 6,200, that's fantastic. And this is like one of the best matchups possible in fantasy basketball. They're playing against the Lakers role players.
It's just my only question with that, and that's kind of why I phrased it. It's like, and I think you already answered it. Did he get those minutes just because he is a young player and they just want to see him consistently get minutes? Or did he get minutes because they were like, okay, maybe we'll rest him a little bit tomorrow night?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. With the OKC coach, this is risky, the weirdest. Right? Yeah, like Andrew Wiggins starts and then Isaiah Joe comes off the bench, but Isaiah Joe starts the second half and he's 0%. He's a guy. It's so hard to predict this rotation. Lou Dort's still a good play today, though. Love Lou Dort.
I'm wondering about Dario Saric actually in this game because Kenrich Williams is out, and so if he gets 20 minutes, I feel like I would just want to load up on him.
I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Okay.
It seems fine. Too cheap, especially if if they're in the starting lineup, I think is key too. But even off the bench, these guys are all playing. So
I'm going to get risky. I'm going to put him in there for now. We'll see. Okay, so we're going to move on into center here.
okay.
So once again, just sorting it by OF index real quick. Giannis, Embiid, multiple position eligibility players. Jaren Jackson, we got Jared Vanderbilt. Bam Adebayo, who's coming in off of a terrible game, coming in at low ownership as a result. He could be someone interesting. DeAndre Ayton, Vooch, J-Val, Mark Williams, Sengun, Mobley. And actually, I want to give you a take on Bam.
Okay.
So I am wondering if Bam has started to, for lack of a better terms, suck in terms of DFS production because of K Love coming in there and soaking up, I guess, a little bit of usage, some rebounds here and there and whatnot. Do you have any? Is that a good take or a bad take, or is it just maybe a strange thing that's happening?
No, that sounds fair. I mean, it makes sense. K Love does a lot of things that Bam does, and I noticed K Love's usage was a lot. Like he's taking shots. He has no hesitation on just pulling. So it is going to affect Bam, but if he's going to come in at this low ownership and he's 8,200, I think 8,200 is a great price for him on DraftKings. He's worth taking tournament shots. I was going to say if people are going to Jimmy because of his last game, but they're still not going to Jimmy. And so it's a tough matchup, but at 4%, Bam is a guy who can, I mean, he can put up 50 plus. We'll be very happy if Bam puts up 50 plus today.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's a tough matchup, but I think he's fine.
Yeah, I could see being over the weight on maybe just obviously it's a low ownership, but like double at his current ownership and just being fine with it.
Yeah, it's not hard to get over him. So yeah, we like that. And I just looked it up, and Bam's usage is essentially the same with Kevin Love. It's down 0.5% maybe, or 0.5 usage. So small sample, but it is going to affect things a little bit, I guess. But it doesn't affect what how we're looking at Bam tonight. He's low owned and he's cheap.
Yeah. And then I'm just kind of sorting by FanDuel value, just real quick. Literally the same people. Wiseman's pulling up there. Tillman a little bit. I don't really see any. Do you see any like strong value? I mean, James Earl Robinson, I guess on DraftKings, if he gets 20 minutes, would be appealing. But
it's gross.
Yeah, I think I'd honestly rather do Saric.
Yeah, I'd rather play Saric. Yeah, I mean it's Vanderbilt, maybe Wiseman. Yeah, that's really it. So it looks like we're going to be paying up at center today, probably.
What about Gabriel for the Lakers?
I don't know. It's like I talk about wanting to target backup centers, even though he's min price. Like we can play Gabriel. I'll probably allow him in my player pool, but it's so thin. He did play really well when he got the opportunity, though. So.
I think you summed it up well. You can play these guys. It's definitely an option, but it's not preferred.
Like if I see him show up in a couple of lineups that makes the lineup work, I'll probably keep it. I'm not gonna I need to rebuild all my lineups because Wenyan Gabriel's in two. If the lineup works with him in it, then that's fine. I mean, having a min price guy that can score 25 fantasy points is very useful today.
Yeah.
So,
and obviously would allow you to pay up for Lillard pretty easily then.
I wanted to mention Jackson Hayes too. Okay. I mentioned if Joe Val was out earlier, Jackson Hayes is showing up down here at the bottom of the center value. But if he's in the starting lineup, that should shoot up. Or even if Joe Val's out and Hernan Gomez is starting, Jackson Hayes off the bench is still going to be great at the flat min power forward eligible on DraftKings.
How many projected minutes would he have to be at for you to feel comfortable or feel really good about rostering him?
If he's starting, I'm fine playing him no matter what. And then if I'd probably want 20, 20 projected minutes because maybe he can get up to 24 if he's playing well.
That's what his game log suggests too. When he's out, gotten time, it's about 20 to 25. So
seems like enough, yeah.
Okay, so I think we are good to get into the core plays section of this video. Just highlighting our top core plays. We'll touch on some questions here. Halburn now questionable. That is very interesting. Isaiah Joe just chucks. Joe just needs to get the minutes and minutes without Josh Giddey on the court. That's the biggest issue. It's been annoying, honestly, watching the last two games.
There's a lot of guys like that tonight.
For real though, that's the summary of the slate. It's annoying.
Yeah. Is Josh Okogie or Torrey Craig the fifth starter on the non-super team Suns? Well, the Suns are a super team.
Yes.
I'm expecting Josh Okogie. Well, I'm not sure. Yeah, it probably makes more sense if Torrey Craig starts. They don't really need. I feel like Josh Okogie better off the bench on this team than Torrey Craig, but I don't care about the Suns. So
I mean, they're both overpriced.
probably, yeah. Okogie's definitely overpriced with KD, and yeah. I mean, we don't have to play any of them for DFS purposes, but it's good to be aware of how they'll affect the rotation. But no one on Phoenix is a play today.
I'm like looking at maybe like a blowout play, and I don't even see one of those either. Like,
yeah, it's pretty gross.
I mean, campaign, he's having his minutes capped, right now. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, even if we got word that he doesn't have a minutes cap, he's still a little bit too expensive for me.
Yeah.
4,800.
It just seems like a stay away, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Is there I didn't look into this. Is there a thing going on that the Suns aren't a super team on Twitter?
Oh, I don't know. I think Suns fans just trying to make themselves feel better.
Oh, okay.
They are absolutely a super team.
No, I saw a lot of chatter on my Twitter feed yesterday about super teams and whatnot. I didn't look into it. And I was just like, is that why? Were people trying to not call them a super team?
I mean, even if you say like Chris Paul or Aiden isn't a stud, like KD's a stud, Booker's a stud. If you combine Chris Paul and Aiden, that's a third stud. So yeah, I think it fits the criteria for a super team. They have good role players too.
Their role players are great for their team. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll start off kind of the core play section here a little bit. And it's a weird slate. I don't feel like we have a really Damian Lillard, we already mentioned, that's kind of the obvious one on tonight's slate. But other than him, I really just don't feel like we have too many, I need to roster that guy, he's going to be in the winning GPP lineup type plays. Like, I feel like we just don't have that. Now, I do really like Dario Saric if he's going to get 20 minutes. I just think we're basically locking in 20 DK points with the upside to go for 30. That's probably my favorite play at a low ownership. That's honestly all I really got in terms of like conviction. Any players that you love, like that you feel really great about?
That I feel really great about? No. I like that Dario Saric call. I think Brooklyn are guys that, like, they're not chalk or anything. They shouldn't be in all of your lineups or anything like that. But I feel like the Brooklyn guys, one of them is going to be in the winning lineup tonight. Assuming it's not a super blowout again. They're too cheap and too low owned.
Would you just go with Cam Johnson just because he's the lowest priced one right now, or no?
Well, I think Cam Johnson and who was a similar price guy? Oh, maybe it wasn't. Yeah, Cam Johnson's the easiest guy to fit in for sure. But I think Spencer Dinwiddie's price is too low at 7,100 on DraftKings if he's going to come in at 5% ownership.
Right, against New York.
Yeah, I think these top four guys are all very good tournament plays today. Like four of the best tournament plays on the slate. And also a couple of the New York guys, Brunson and Randall, are also really good tournament plays. Yeah,
we didn't really mention Brunson. Do you like him today, or is he just like a GPP only play? If you're running out two Brooklyn players, you can run it back.
Just a GPP play for Brunson. Just when he's under 5%, I think his price is correct at 8,600. And I think he's a really good player.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Double checking that ownership. That is pretty low from Brunson.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, big fan of that ownership.
Yeah, honestly, I don't mind running out just like a little bit of a Brooklyn, New York game stack. What is the game over and under? Is it close? -1 for so maybe an OT game then too. You never know.
That would be awesome.
That'd be ideal, right?
One thing to note is the total is lower, 223. Not that we have super high total games tonight. Like Portland, I think is the one that would be the one.
Yeah,
at 234 about. But yeah, one thing too, I just noticed the Philadelphia Miami game total is pretty low, 215.5. So that might be driving the low ownership also.
Yeah, I mean that's Miami though. Like it's just always low.
Yeah.
All right, so we got to figure this out. So we got value, for the Philly or not the Philly bigs. We got value for the Detroit bigs, and we got value for the Laker bigs. We need to rank those two. I feel like somehow. So we got Vanderbilt, Bagley, Wiseman, Bamba, and then Hachimura.
All right, let's.
Are you just pulling it up on the model? That's smart.
Yeah, I'm gonna. It's such a crapshoot to say this guy's. Like my first intuition is that Jared Vanderbilt is not as good of a play as people think he is today. I touted him pretty hard yesterday, but his price was also lower. Yeah, it's rough. Like I mentioned with Ham, like Jared Vanderbilt should be playing 37 minutes if it's a competitive game and LeBron's not there. I think he only played like 26 yesterday, or he was on pace for 26 by halftime.
Yeah.
And so this ownership, it's just, that's not great. Like, and we can't really expect the shot volume to come up either. That's not the type of player he is. Like I talk about guys stepping into roles when other stars are out. Vanderbilt's not all of a sudden going to chuck up 10 shots. I know he had a good game the other day, but even then, did he even take 10 shots 2 games ago? I know he put up like 15 or 17 points.
Eight shots. Yeah, I'm scrolling. I don't think he's put up a 10-shot game. Okay, there we go. 13, 12, 10. Okay, so he's had about 6 or 5 games this whole season where he's gotten over 10 shot attempts.
It's so hard to want to play this guy at that ownership. Like he's going to get there through peripheral stats more than scoring most of the time. But I just think that we can go somewhere else and have the leverage on half the field, I think.
Yeah, I agree as well.
The other value, and with James Wiseman, he's second. Like I'd rather get to James Wiseman at his ownership than Jared Vanderbilt. That's not even close to me.
Well, what did we have him projected for minutes? Because he only had 27 minutes in the last game, and he was 9 for 11.
James Wiseman.
Yeah.
We have him for 26.
Okay.
As long as Duren is out, that seems fine.
Yeah.
I mean, their only other big man is Bagley, right? Because Livers got hurt in the previous game, actually.
Yep.
So yeah, James Wiseman's going to look great. Bagley's going to look great too.
What are his minutes? I'm not pulling it up on that screen just yet.
Bagley's at 25.5, and so it looks like we basically expect them to split the minutes. Maybe they share the court for 2.
Okay.
If that happens, then I think they're both fine. Probably don't want to play them together unless I don't think they'll both start. Yeah, but don't play them together.
And then Hachimura got 20 minutes last game. Actually, was pretty good. I feel like if we knew he was going to get 26 or 30 minutes, we'd feel really good about him at 3.7. But at the same time, I feel like we are probably locking in 18 DK points at 3.7 on DraftKings. It feels like a play we should almost make.
I mean, he's chalk. I'm fine getting to him. He's so cheap. We can't avoid everyone, right? I'm okay getting to Rui a little bit, but I do think he's one of the guys I would try to get away from. Just be careful. Yeah, just be careful with the groups you set. Like, probably don't want Rui, Malik Beasley, Schroeder, and Vanderbilt all in a lineup together.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 is okay. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would agree. And so I did a kind of first look build there. It's not pretty. It's not pretty right now. It's we got 5K left over pretty much to make a pivot. I'd probably go up from Isaiah Joe in that scenario. Put Dinwiddie in the guard.
I like that.
We have 9.4 left over. Mitchell, Vooch, Randall. Yeah, so I don't know. Butler. Hopefully he has a big game again.
Yeah, I'd be okay sliding Butler in. We have, it's not loading on the screen for me. We have one other low-owned guy in the lineup, right? Did we throw in Spencer in there?
We got Spencer Dinwiddie in there. And then we got a couple of the Brooklyn guys. Well, Spencer Dinwiddie, Cam Johnson, pretty low owned. Sarge, I don't think is going to be too chalk. Bagley probably shouldn't be too chalk. So
it's a pretty good GPP lineup.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't know if there's a good cash lineup, like single entry cash lineup tonight. I just don't think that's out there.
The cash lineup is going to be duped how many times tonight?
Yeah. But I just,
if Ja play.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, if Ja Morant plays, I'm pretty sure that the cash lineup is going to be duped 50 times.
But is that the correct move?
In every tournament. No.
Is that I don't think it is.
Yeah, I don't play cash. I just don't think it's viable in the long term, not for NBA anyway.
Not for NBA. Yeah.
It's you have to play such high volume, and then you're still probably only going to beat it by 5%.
Yep.
It's just play tournaments, I think.
Yep. So when I say I'd mostly do single entry GPPs, just FYI to the crowd.
Mhm.
And then, so a couple of questions. How would you stack the Nets next game? Probably just 4 players max, maybe 3 Nets and 1 Knicks, or what do you think?
I don't know that I'm going to set restrictions. I'm not going to get too much of that anyway. But some combination of Claxton, Dinwiddie, Cam Johnson, and then you can throw McHale in there. I would say McHale's the 4th option just to pricing. And then Brunson or Randall, and you're good. Mitchell Robinson, too, on New York. He's just going overlooked every slate. I think he's 5K today. It's a great play, too.
Yeah. So, just real quickly, which of these players that are over, let's just say 20% owned on DraftKings right now? So that's Vanderbilt, Hachimura, Schroeder, Beasley, Lillard, Rozier, Morant, Dort, and Giddey. Which one of them are most likely to be a chalky disappointment?
Giddey.
Yeah, I would
Giddey.
say so too.
It's like the other guys. If Rui doesn't play as many minutes, or even Malik Beasley doesn't play as many minutes for whatever, they're cheap. They're not going to kill us. But Giddey's pretty expensive, and just think about the pivots that you can play. Like if Giddey puts up 20, someone at a similar price is going to put up more than 20. But it's just a minutes thing with Giddey. Like he's fine when he's on the court. Just we can't trust the OKC coach right now.
Yeah. I don't know what his ceiling is. Like 45, like realistically.
I feel like it's higher with SGA. He's a better player when SGA is on the court, so it's kind of weird. I thought it was the opposite.
Right? Like, no, it should be, right?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
I think it's just because he's more of a facilitator.
That makes sense. Yeah, he's not really putting up 20 shots, right?
Mm-hmm. And then randomly, Jeremy Grant is pretty cheap on FanDuel. He's coming in at 31% ownership. And then we got Gordon Hayward as well, coming in at about 31% ownership. Any thoughts on those two?
Wait, Jeremy Grant is pulling how much ownership?
31, because he's $1,000. I can't really see right now. My eyes are $500 cheaper on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. So yeah, 31% right now.
It seems a little high. That seems really high. Just Jeremy Grant has, especially if Simons is back, that's probably a cross off for me. But even if Simons isn't back, like Grant isn't taking over games. The Damian Lillard is on the court. Even when Grant's having good games, he's not putting up enough for us to be excited about playing him at 6,600, especially at this ownership. That would be a spot I want to get away from. But I mean, he's cheap. He can get there. Yeah. But I just think other guys have a better chance to do so today.
I agree with that. And so real quickly, I'll answer this last question, then we'll give our final thoughts here. So 5.5 left on FanDuel, shooting guard. So I'll just try to scroll by that.
I mean, Malik Beasley is the default if he's not already in your lineup. Not saying you have to play him, but he's like the easy value today.
Yep.
3. It's kind of tough if you're going. It's kind of tough.
I don't want to say Dylan Brooks. He's popping up. Don't do Dylan.
No, we're not saying don't play Dylan Brooks at 5K.
So honestly, I know you didn't disagree with it, but you weren't as gung ho about it as much as me. But like Herbert Jones, I would say if Val is out, I could see him just getting a couple more points. And
I like him as a tournament play. Yeah. Especially the way he scores fantasy points specifically. Doesn't have to put up 15 shots.
Yeah. It's almost like Grayson Allen's pretty cheap there. It almost
I like Grayson
could pay
Allen.
down.
Might I would say probably try to switch something around if you don't love Malik Beasley, or if he's already in another spot in your lineup. Maybe just retool things and try to switch another position.
Yeah. Okay, so any final thoughts for the slate?
Just trying to see if I missed anyone. Like I don't think focus so much on the players that you're picking today. Just like what's the difference really between a few of these guys? Just mix it up. Like take a lean. We have to take a lean somewhere. You've seen what the model thinks for that. I think the model's pretty strong when we're indifferent. Just the only guy we didn't mention, I think Hamidou Diallo is showing up a lot from me, but make sure if he's not starting, then he's going to be way over-owned. I think that's the only guy we didn't mention I want to talk about.
Yeah, I think it would almost be a mistake not to have like about one Detroit player in your builds.
Yeah, they're just
kind of on average.
I mean, we had 5 in our lineups last time. Like
that's right.
Someone here is going to have a good game.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, that was going to be my last point, is kind of pulling up Detroit as well. So I think we're pretty good. I don't think we have any more questions. Yeah, we're good. All right, that is all, guys. Just a reminder, be in the Discord chat before lock. The link to that is going to be in the description below, as well as the access to all the tools that you saw, the model here. This is going to be updating throughout the slate. I haven't refreshed the page, so it actually could be updated right now, probably is. We do have the lineup builder as well there for you guys to use. All that is in the link in the description below. It's going to be out for Occupy Fantasy members. All right, that's all I have. Good luck tonight, guys.